Hello everyone and welcome to my studio. Today I am celebrating my 250 plus followers. It may seem like a small feat to some of you, but it is huge for me. So I would like to first thank all of my loyal subscribers who have stuck with me this far, and to all of my new subscribers. I am grateful for all of you. Thank you for your support around the world and all your lovely comments. I really enjoy reading your comments. And today I'm going to be painting one of my favorite flowers, which is the cosmos flowers. And I will be showing you how I overworked and overthought this painting and what happens when you overthink a painting. So as you can see, I started out by spritzing my paper with some clean water. Today I'm using the Bao Hung Artist Grade 100% cotton watercolor paper. I actually like Bao Hung paper. I don't really care for the student grade, but I like the artist grade. The only downfall that I see with Bao Hung paper is it doesn't like to lift the paint. So once it's down on the paper, it's pretty much there. So I just started out with spritzing the paper, and then I'm just using varying different shades of blues and pinks and purples and greens to kind of do this variegated background. And as you can tell, it's really wet and the paint is just kind of flowing together. I'm trying my best to stay away from the flowers because of the staining issue, and I don't really want the colors to get into the flowers themselves. So I'm just using a paper towel to lift out wherever I can. I've found that if I scrub on the Bao Hung paper, some of it comes out, but the greens seem to stain pretty bad. And I'm just using some clean fresh water to add some droplets onto the paper because I want this background to be a little muddled. Kind of a bokeh type aesthetic, I guess you could say, but just the drops of water just kind of repel the paint away from wherever you put the drops of water. The other good thing about Bao Hung paper is it stays wet for a lot longer. I live in the South and my paper dries extremely fast. So Bao Hung kind of gives me some time to work. So as you can see, the paper is still really wet here, so I'm able to add in this color, and it's just kind of blending into the background, which I wanted because I wanted it to look like these flowers were in the background and pretty blurry. Here I'm using some Van Dyke green, and I'm just going in and I'm going to try and add in some green foliage. In the areas where the paper is still wet, it's going to blend in pretty well. And I'm going to have to keep spritzing because, as you can tell, I'm getting some hard lines. And at this point, with the background, I don't want any hard lines. So I'm going to use my spray bottle to keep everything kind of wet and fluid. And as you can see up there at the top, I'm starting to get some really cool blooms off of that top right hand flower, which is, I kind of like the paint to do whatever it wants to do because I like the way watercolor leaves the blooms where the paper is drying a little bit faster in some areas and slower in other areas, so you get some really cool texture. If you're wanting to follow along with today's painting, I sped up this video to 2 times the playback speed. If you would like to change that speed, it's really quite simple. Underneath the video, you'll see a little symbol for the settings, and if you click on that, there'll be a subsetting that says playback speed, and you can actually slow down the video to whatever speed you'd like. I always like to mention that in my videos because a lot of people are not aware of that feature on YouTube. And as a painter who has used YouTube many times, I have used that feature to slow things down when I was learning. And I still do it to this day. I'm not a professional artist. I don't consider myself a professional artist. And I still watch other people's videos and learn from them, and I slow down the videos on many occasions. So while this paper is still very wet, I'm just adding in some foliage down at the bottom with just varying shades of Van Dyke green and yellow green. And these are just kind of blending into the background. And I'm just flicking the paintbrush to, because Cosmos flowers, they don't really have leaves. They kind of have these long, thin, they look like stems, but they're leaves, I guess. And I've just mixed up, you can tell I use a lot of older paints that are, still on my palette. That was a mixture of, I believe, Ultramarine Deep and some Van Dyke Brown. And I'm just using it to make some details in the center of these flowers. At this point, I haven't overworked this painting. I got a little, I don't know, I guess a little stringent and a little perfectionistic when I started doing the petals, and whenever that happens, it seems to just go haywire from that point. I have noticed, and I hope this is something that may help all of you, I've noticed that if I paint quick enough to not allow my brain to just like freak out and get all crazy and try to control everything, my paintings seem to come out better. And when I paint quicker, because I'm not getting too detailed with the painting, it seems to turn out better too. So I hope that helps some of you if you're struggling. I struggle pretty much on every painting, but the ones that seem to turn out the best is when I do it quickly. So try a quick painting and see if that helps you. I used my heat tool to dry this painting, and luckily, because Mission Gold watercolor paints are so heavily pigmented, the background didn't really fade too much. If you have student grade paints, sometimes you'll see a huge variation between when your paint is wet versus when it's dry, and that's normal. I love the pigment load in Magello Mission Gold watercolors, and if you're interested in the palette that I have, I will leave a link in the description box below. All of my links are for Amazon. I make a very small commission if you purchase something. It doesn't cost you anything extra. You'll still get the same price that anybody else would, but I just get a very small commission, and it just helps to buy supplies for my channel, and I actually haven't made anything off of it, so it's no big deal. I love to paint. That's why I do this, and that's why I share it. Painting brings me joy. It helps me forget about the troubles of the world. So I'm not really, at this point, getting into any serious details. I'm just using those varying shades of green to just add in some random leaves and stems down here. At this point, I had just really shut up my mind and was allowing things to happen. But when it gets to the petals of these flowers, I start to freak out. I don't know why. My brain just kind of went haywire. I guess because I wanted this painting to be so good for all of you that I started overthinking it and started overworking it. And once it starts to go downhill from that point, there's no coming back. because once the paint is on the paper, it's done. So I just kind of, this first flower, I just realized this is not going well. This is not what I wanted, but I just continued on and just decided to let it be what it was. I wasn't happy with the outcome, but sometimes, it's nice to show that, we do make mistakes, and, sometimes not every painting is going to come out the way we want it to. It's all a learning process. So, and if you're doing it like me to kind of, just forget about the world and just enjoy, what's going on with the painting, then there is no failure. The color that I'm actually using for those flowers is Quinacridone Crimson Lake. I really like that color. And the centers, I actually used the yellow ochre, but I wasn't really happy with that color, and I wanted, you can see here, I believe I mixed in some permanent yellow deep. I don't know, I just thought that yellow ochre, usually I use that on the center of flowers, but for some reason it just didn't have the punch that I wanted it to. And probably a permanent yellow light would have been better, but I didn't lift it out. I realized at this point in the painting that it wasn't going the way I wanted it to, and I just really wanted it to end. I hope you guys can relate. If you can relate, leave me a comment in the comment section below. I really like to hear you guys' stories. And thank all of you for all your wonderful comments and your encouragement. It really does help. Hello. My little girl is saying hello. Her name is Tink because she's a little stinker. I'm just lifting out some highlights in the top of this flower. There's really not a serious source of light in this painting, which is another thing. When you don't really have a good source of light, I didn't have a reference photo for this painting, so this one is pretty much coming out of my head, and that's probably, I think that's another reason why some paintings go awry, is because you don't really have a plan in place. I have noticed that when I plan my paintings a lot in more detail, they seem to come out better. So try to have a plan in place when you're trying to, have a successful painting. Now see, at this point, if I had left these flowers alone, they probably would have turned out pretty good, but then I start overworking them. Because I'm trying to think to myself, I need to put in shadows, I need to make this darker here, and my brain just goes in overload and I screw it all up. It still doesn't look too bad at this point, but trust me, it gets worse. The other thing that I realized in this painting is, had I left that bottom flower white, I think it probably would have turned out better. But another hard thing about watercolor is, how if you're an oil painter or you're an acrylic painter and you have your canvas set up on your easel and you can step back from it and take a good look at it from far away. If I would have been able to step back from this painting and not try to rush through it, then I think things would have turned out a lot better. Sometimes stepping back from your painting and looking at it from a distance really helps too. It gives you some perspective. At this point, I'm kind of digging what these flowers look like in this painting, and I really should have kept that front flower white, but I didn't. Still not overworking it at this point, but it gets worse. I love the background on this painting. I've told you guys in the past that I really like doing the backgrounds. I love letting the paint flow together. I think it's so much fun, and I love making blurry ideas in the background, and that's just my favorite part of the painting. So in this flower, I'm just letting that quinacridone crimson lake bleed into that pink, because these flowers are still really wet, so the paint is flowing really good. I'm really surprised that this bao hong lets me keep the paper wet this long. Usually if I'm using arches or a cheaper cheaper paper dries really fast for me. So I'm just using a shade of blue. As you can tell, it's kind of a blue with a purple mixed in, and I'm trying to make some shadows on these flowers. But at this point, this is where I start to overwork it. Had I left it alone, it probably would have ended up a lot better. So if you're starting a painting and you're having trouble, I would say, in my opinion, and through my experience, that starting with a very good detailed drawing and having a really good reference photo at your disposal while you're painting will help you, and also speed up your painting. Some other advice is always have a water bottle handy and some paper towels, because when I don't have paper towels readily available, I lose control over the water. Because in watercolor, you're always dealing with too much water, not enough water, you're back and forth. So I mixed up some Prussian blue and some purple to make this deep color on these flowers. They are completely overworked. That bottom flower, I should have kept it white. It looks terrible, but I wanted to paint something special for you guys today. I really do appreciate all my subscribers, and I really thank all of you for watching my videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, everybody.